There will be spoilers ahead. Lots of spoilers, so be careful, won't you? Eastbound and down, loaded up in truck, and we gonna do what they say can't be done. We got a long way to go and a short time to get there, but I'm eastbound, just watch old Bandit run. That's the theme of this week's movie on Max Mike Movies. That's right, we're coming towards the end of our series, Ladies and Gentlemen, the Beatles, and what movie better personifies Smokey and the Bandit than the Beatles' own Hard Day's Night? Nope, I sure can't think of one. The themes explore all the same. They're both filmed in black and white, and heck, Jerry Reed is practically the 18th Beatle twice removed. So how else could I start off this show? Nah, can't see any other way. Nope, no sir, no how. But I bet that crumb bun over there could, because that there is the very clean man himself, godfather of soul, uncle of bop, aunt of hip-hop, Max Levine. Try not to strangle me, Max.
Oh, Mike. Poor Mike. It's all been too much for you, hasn't it?
Smokey and the Bandit, get it? Because, no, they're no.
No, I don't at all. Neither does anyone else. You deranged loon.
Yeah, well, that's because I'm the one who didn't do his homework, didn't study for the test, and has been paying for it ever since, old screaming chicken himself, Mike Luce. And as Burt Reynolds would say, we're going to get us some Beatles. But first...
Never said that.
At least twice. There's that poll question we got to take care of. Poll question. Last week, we asked what comic book character needs their own film, and there were a few good answers. First up was Dave. Can I get a Dave?
Dave.
Thank you. Who gave us two, Squirrel Girl or Roll the Cat. Extra points for those of you who know what comic Raoul came from.
Oh,
Thanks,
I know.
Dave.
That was that Ralph Bakshi X-rated comic movie. So he already had one.
No.
Wrong cat?
Yes.
Oh. But, Squirrel Girl, we were supposed to get a live-action show. We never did.
Oh. Well, Steve Kellner was next, and he seconded Squirrel Girl. Huh. Yeah, maybe I should check her out. He came back later with E-Man. Ooh, there's a deeper.
Oh, wow. That would be expensive.
Panties and capes. Panties and capes. We're going to get some candy.
That's someone else. We'll get to that.
Oh, yeah. Those are good choices, though. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
The Weasel kind of cheated by not seriously suggesting King Tut. Turns out they did eventually bring him into the comics, but he was decidedly un-Victor Buono-esque.
Oh, then what's the point?
I don't know. Since the character was made up as far as
some kind of delayed echo in here.
Batman. Anyway, thanks, Weasel, for, Val Coons posted Cerebus. Ooh, that'd be an interesting one. Thanks, not my sister. Matt Reisman gives us, quote, I think I'd really enjoy an animated Bone movie or series, end quote. Ooh, missed it by that much.
Yeah, they were going to do that on Netflix, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. And over from the site, as the kids say, we have the Snowman who typed, quote, Neil the Horse, no relation to Bumpy that I know of. I actually know what it is.
Yeah, I've heard of it. But...
I am sort of amazed that American Flag was never made into a movie by now, though, end quote. Oh, and there goes the prize money for knowing Raoul the Cat. Yep. Thanks, Vince. And Max actually did know what comic it was from, so he just played along. So, Max, what about you? Who do you think needs their own comic book-based movie that ain't got one yet?
I know it wouldn't work because there's just the licensing would be a nightmare, but I would love to see Normal Man.
Huh. So why wouldn't Normal Man work?
The cross-licensing, I mean, they make fun of, like, ElfQuest, Marvel, DC. It would be incredibly difficult. And also, honestly, it's kind of a one-note joke. I don't know how well it would work outside of a comic book. Mm-hmm. Normal Man, for those of you who don't know, is basically an ordinary human being who ends up on a world where every single other person is a superhero.
Is that that's where Song and Dance Man comes from?
That's Song and Dance Men, who are conjoined twins and just dance through the background every so often singing panties and capes, all superheroes wear panties and capes. Which, until I read that, I was going, oh dear God, they're right. Hadn't really hit me.
Well, you know where that comes from, right?
Yeah, circus performers.
Yeah, so that's where superheroes was like, well, we'll just dress them like the guys in the circus.
Yeah.
Is that also where we got the unhappy F-men?
No, that is from E-Man.
That's from E-Man. Okay.
Yeah. They had, I think, they had their own parodies of the X-Men in Normal Man, but it wasn't that direct.
Wasn't the leader of them Zit Pops, who had to wear a ruby begonia facial shield to hold back his terrifying facial blasts?
Yep. It was bloody hilarious. What is it? And Kitty Porn.
Yeah.
She is bright. She's 13 and a half years old, bright, spunky, and very, very cute. Most people are tempted to bludgeon her to death with a shovel.
Yeah. Probably not a bad idea. So just Normal Man, nobody else?
I don't know. I used to think I'd like to see the Badger.
Oh,
but
yeah.
people have done the whole, recently Moon Knight, the whole multiple personality superhero. Except I think with the right writing, it could be really funny.
Yeah, whatever you say, Larry.
Yeah.
I think, didn't he have 17, I think it was? Something like that.
I don't think he knew.
Oh.
He had a whole bunch.
One of them was a little girl.
One was a little girl. One was a serial killer. One was a 12th century mystic Viking.
Yeah.
It was one was a gay architect. One was his baseline personality, and another was the Badger. I think there were others too.
Was he Norbert Sykes?
Yes.
Okay, wow. Boy, that's dig that one out of the
good
ground.
memory, man.
Well, connected to that, a comic that I think would make a great show is Nexus, which at various points was written by the same person. And I really liked Nexus. Nexus was space opera with a capital S, capital O. Not very well known, but I liked it. Another comic I'd like to see is Mage, the first run, the first run.
Oh, that would work. I think it'd make a really good show.
I think it'd make a great
series or something.
Yeah, because it's the whole idea is that a lot of the various mystical characters from literature actually existed. Sometimes they're gods, or in this case, we have the Earth Mage, who is more or less Merlin, and a current day guy named Kevin Matchstick, who has a magical bat, which is actually the personification of
Excalibur.
And he's supposed to be Arthur, or a version of Arthur, who looks haunting like the guy who wrote and drew the comic.
But that's what Matt Wagner looks like, huh?
Yeah, pretty much at the time. And the funny thing is that when he did the second series, Matt Wagner was losing his hair, so Kevin Matchstick lost his hair too.
That's fair.
Yeah. Also, if I want to dig deeper, there is an English pair called Milligan and McCarthy who did some really odd comics. One of them, there's a miniseries called Rogan Gosh that was done by Vertigo. They also did a character I really liked, who I think they did once, named Parallax. Was literally a guy who found a super suit that allowed him to phase through things, but he wasn't always good at getting all the way through things, so sometimes he had things like a toaster stuck through him and stuff.
Oh, dear.
But they, especially the artist, McCarthy, his stuff is very trippy, very psychedelic-y, and I would actually love to see an animated movie of stuff like his. And let's face it, if we're going to go that direction, something by Mobius, I think, an actual Mobius cartoon made into an animated film would be really cool. The closest I could say we got is kind of Fifth Element, because he did a lot of the production design for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of would, if we're going that way, I'd kind of like to see a DR and Quinch movie.
That's good old 2000 AD, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, they were fun. 2000, those British comics, for those who haven't seen it. So, yeah, but hey, we love the answers. We always
Thank you
love
so
the
much.
answers.
Obviously got us talking.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe we'll even do a series on comic book things at some point, or a show based on some comic book character. I don't know. It's probably a silly idea. We'll never do it.
That's crazy talk.
But of course, we have a new question for this week.
Tell us.
What is your favorite movie quote? What line pops into your head most often, and why do you like it so much? Let us know in ways that will astound you with rainbows.
Reading is like a rainbow in your mind.
No, that's...
my favorite obviously is Duck, Magnum, Duck!
Because he's a blonde.
Yeah.
But for the moment, let's get back to the Beatles! The show. Trivia. The title song, A Hard Day's Night, comes from one of Ringo's many malapropisms. Once he'd said it, John and Paul raced each other to write a song first. John won, and he wrote it in one sitting. Although apparently they all contributed, but yeah. There's one Beatle missing. In the scene
What?
where the lads are all running
Pete
about
Best?
the field. Huh? Yeah, no, not Pete Best. Not even Pete Worst. In the scene where the lads are all running about the field, that is in fact not John Lennon, but an incredible simulation.
Wow, John Mania.
Yeah, he was off promoting a book he'd written called In My Own Right, W-R-I-T-E.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. He's in the rest of the movie.
Yes, just that one scene.
Okay.
Ringo, ever the method actor, looked quite sad while sitting by the river when he's off on his own. Well, sad's not the right word.
No?
Hungover seemed to be the right one, as he'd been out late the night before drinking heavily. Can't act? Try drinking.
Okay.
The movie wasn't... I'm sorry?
I was going to say, the melancholy, I just thought, as someone said, are you sad all the time? And he replied to the reporter, it's just me face.
And we'll actually get to that very soon. The movie wasn't made as merch. It wasn't even meant to make money. United Artists expected to take a bath with it. What they did expect to make money on was the soundtrack, which they would distribute. Thing is, the $500,000 budgeted movie pulled in about $8 million of its own.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah. At the time, anyway, it was considered one of, by ratio, one of the most successful films in Hollywood history, even if it wasn't made in Hollywood.
Well, it made 40 times its budget. You don't see that a lot.
No. One of the young women who just happens to meet our lads on the train, Patty Boyd, would marry Sir George about a year and a half later. So, just goes to show you it pays to go on trains. You might marry a Beatle.
That's the message?
Yes, that's the entire message of this film.
Okay, sure.
Take the train, you might
what I
marry a
was
Beatle.
watching.
Yeah. Seems the fans were not just a problem in real life, they were a problem in production as well. The whole first day shooting on the train sequence was lost as the man carrying the negatives was mistaken for a Beatle, chased, and he lost the film cans trying to get away.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
That's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, the level of fanness in this film is actually toned way down because we don't see nearly as many as there would be. But, yeah. United Artists, in their infinite wisdom, decided it would be best for the Beatles to be dubbed with the infamous, at least on this show, mid-Atlantic accent. Sir Paul protested, saying, quote, "Look, if we can understand a bleeping cowboy talking Texan, they can understand us talking Liverpool," end quote. He has a point, and he's not even French. The Beatles' characterizations were both written and observed. Alan Owen expanded on the personalities he'd seen while the band was on tour, and as such, John became the smartass, Paul the cute one, George is the quiet one, and Ringo is goofy and sad. So, but yeah. He just has sort of sad eyes, sort of, but he smiles a lot, so. Yeah. Though cut from the film, a very young Phil Collins was in a crowd scene when the lads were singing You Can't Do That. At least you can't do that on television. This appearance would inspire him to go on and write songs for Disney's animated Tarzan. Oh, and some other things, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Phil Collins, never heard of him. That gambling club that Ringhouse somehow gets an invitation from, Le Cirque, is the same one from the first James Bond film, Dr. No.
I think it's a real place.
It is.
Yeah, very famous.
Another Bond connection. The stuffy old man in the train car was played by the same actor who would play Colonel Smithers in the opening of Goldfinger. And if that wasn't enough, a woman at Le Cirque played Dink in Goldfinger as well. Conspiracy!
The old man on the train, by the way, the tight ass on the train.
Yep.
Richard Vernon, I think his name is. I was like, I swear that voice is familiar. He was in the 1981 Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy TV show.
Oh.
He played Slarty Bart Fast.
Well, and who wouldn't? The other thing, of course, is that the film was made by United Artists, who were the people at the time who were putting out the Bond film. So,
okay.
All of the Beatles went to the premiere, but none of them stayed through it.
Oh, dear.
Don't know what that means, although, yeah. The actual name of the band, the Beatles, is never once stated in the film.
Oh, that's right. I didn't think of that, but yeah, no one ever says that.
Well, there's that one point where they come out and go, "Ladies and gentlemen, these guys." You remember that point.
Oh, sure.
Smoking. The Beatles were smoking.
Ooh.
This was actually a problem when shown to American audience who have obviously got over such things or have we. Even Elvis knew not to be seen publicly smoking, as it tended to suggest a less than clear-cut background. Though smoking was on lots of TV shows and movies at the time.
Hell,
Shocking!
The Flintstones were advertising cigarettes.
All I know is that apparently was the thing they didn't even think about, but when it got, they're not as clean-cut as we thought they were. They're polluting our children's mind. Give me that pack of Marlboros. Yeah, whatever. Though pretty much an utter lie, the film's opening credits include, quote, all characters and events in this film are fictitious. Any similarity to actual events or persons living or dead is purely coincidental, end quote.
But
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
They're even called
fine.
by name, so whatever. Just not the Beatles. So, and quite honestly, a whole lot more. But unless Max has some extra tidbits?
No, I mean, there's a ton of stuff I know, but I think that covers most of the interesting stuff.
Oh, too bad, because now I have to get on to the
Plot?
Yeah. Spoiler, shortest plot I ever wrote. The plot. There isn't one. Seriously, the Beatles get on a train, they're chased by fans, get off a train, are chased by fans, sing some songs. Paul's fake grandfather is along for the ride to try and get him out of the house, and the lads from Liverpool are just more or less themselves, scripted or not, as they eventually make their way to a live performance somewhere. And wackiness and hijinks, the end. The lowdown. So Max.
No, it covers it.
There just isn't.
Yeah.
My favorite thing in the opening, we have starring, and they list the Beatles, also starring Wilfred Bramble.
That's right.
And I'm like, who the hell is that?
Grandpa McCartney.
I have to say, Grandpa McCartney, he's a hoot.
He's a lot of fun.
He is.
Also, he's an actual actor. I mean, the guy Brambley, he was in everything. Hell, he was in Steptoe and Son, which was the sort of British
precursor
or inspiration, if you want to be polite, for Sanford and Son.
Right. And he
Which
played.
I realize a lot of our audience doesn't know what that is anymore.
I think he played Chico.
I thought he was the man.
Oh, well, whatever. Don't let him get you down.
Yeah.
At first, it's like I thought they were, because I hadn't seen this, spoiler. I thought this was just an old man they were going to make fun of on the train. It's like, oh, he's Paul's grandfather. It's like, okay, they're just making, it's like, no, he's supposed to be, he's not. He's Irish, for one thing.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Paul McCartney, he probably has a background. It's Irish, too.
Probably.
But he literally, I think they don't quite say this, but I think literally Grandma said, get out of the house, and made Paul take him.
He needs a change of scene. Yeah.
Yeah, he's very clean.
What is it? This is odd running thing where everybody, he's very clean. What's it? He's a nice old man, isn't he? He's very clean. My, what a clean old man.
Yeah,
everyone's commenting on how clean he is.
I think I did see something about that, but there was so much trivia that I couldn't, I could have gone on and on and on.
I just figured it was like some play on the idea of dirty old man. But
I want to think it actually had something to do with Steptoe and Son, and I just can't remember what it was. And I think, that's right, because I think Steptoe and Son he was on that. It was all about a rag and bone man, and so now he's clean.
That's right. Apparently that was. I just looked. It's the catchphrase is "you dirty old man."
Right. So now he's a clean old man. He doesn't have a lot of moments, but the ones he has are actually pretty fun.
Yeah.
There's one point where he's trying to get the lads to sign a photograph, and it's like, okay, that's cool. And it's like, oh no, he's getting them to sign a photograph so he can forge their signatures and sell other ones.
Sell them. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I enjoyed his performance. I thought he was a hoot. And then of course we get the lads themselves, and
they're really all playing their own, the basic caricatures of their personas. Yeah, John Lennon is always being a wise ass. But George is sort of introspective.
Well, here's the thing I wasn't expecting, because I know the music. I don't really know the Beatles themselves, and I haven't watched the movies. But John's actually pretty funny.
He was actually. He had a very odd sense of humor.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why apparently he and Yoko got along so well. Most people thought her stuff was just incomprehensible, and he just saw it as incredibly clever. But yeah, no, he was very funny. His sense of humor apparently could get a little mean.
Yeah, I could see that. He seemed a little frantic in some places, and they said that this was scripted. It's like, I'm sure some of it was.
Yeah, it does. Some of it really does feel improv. I still wonder about the whole sequence where they're running around in the field.
Yeah.
That looked just like they were told to go and just be silly.
Oh, no, I'm sure they had to do it 5 or 6 times to get all the steps exactly. No, no.
Yeah. It's funny. There were only a couple of sequences I was watching that made me think of the Ruttles. It's like, when they're like, I think it's the first time they play Can't Buy Me Love, and they're running out of fire escape, and I'm going, oh, they did exactly that thing in the Ruttles. But I'm sitting there going, this movie does it much better. It's shorter, it's better edited, the camera angles are more interesting, and the playing around in the field, again, tighter edited, more interesting camera work. I'm still going, did they have a helicopter? Apparently. Those overhead shots, or was that a crane?
No, you could tell the way the movie... Well, also, we see one in the end of the film, so they probably just were like, well, we've got this, let's just use it.
That's kind of... For 1964, that's pretty imaginative.
Yeah. I got to say, too, this is in black and white, because we're right on that edge where most films are color, but there's still black and whites coming out. It's really nicely photographed. The contrast, the depth of focus, it's actually very well shot, which surprised me.
Yeah, the composition of all the shots are interesting. It holds your attention. That said, the pacing is also very 60s.
It's not consistent, I'll say that. We get... basically the Beatles and some actors here and there. Although, again, John was much more of a delight than I thought. One of the earliest things he does is their managers come in to bother them in the train compartment, and John is sitting there miming, sniffing Coke out of a Pepsi bottle. So it's not like it's not Coke, man, because it's actually Pepsi, so you can't. But he's still like going, and then the other nostril, and it's just like this weird little throwaway thing, but it's actually pretty funny.
And there's that sort of odd comedy duo of their manager and their agent, Shake and Norm.
Yeah.
And one of the running gags is Norm complaining, Shake, stop being taller than me.
I can't help it. Wait, I just figured it out. It's that you're shorter than me. And, okay. Apparently actually based on... they're actually based on those real people, actual roles. We don't know who they are, so that's fine.
Yeah,
The guy who eventually plays Colonel Smithers, the one with the in the train. Yeah. I thought it was really interesting because it really showed the difference in classes at that point. Because they are in a car. There is a sign on the window that says reserved. So I don't know if that's
first class.
Right. The Beatles are there. The only person that leaves is their 2 managers leave after they've left. The boys have been told what not to do, which of course they're going to do anyway. And this guy comes out of nowhere, comes in and sits down, and basically immediately assumes control of the rail car. And it's like the first thing he does, he sits there and gives them all dirty looks because of their hair.
Oh, shocking!
And of course they're young people, so that's forget it. But then he closes the window, and they're like, oh, can we have that open? He's like, no, we can't. I
ride this rail regularly twice a week, which apparently gives him greater right. Yeah, he's basically the older generation, the stuffy old generation who can't stand these kids today.
Yeah.
And if they were on his lawn, he would demand they get off it.
If they were even thinking the word lawn.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because, of course, this is the time period where things shift a lot in popular culture, there, here, everywhere, media, where it used to be, well, we're going to make these things for, married people and older, middle-aged people and stuff. And now everything's shifting towards aiming for the kids. And the Beatles are at the forefront of this. And this, I thought and it's such a weird thing to focus on, but it's like, wow, the class privilege here is just like nuts. This guy literally walks in and it's colonialism in like a little 2-minute bit, right? Because he walks in, it's like, now you're going to do the things my way. I have privileges. I'm upper crust British. I know it's right. No, you can't smoke. No, you can't have the window open. No, you can't play the radio. And it's like, we've been here for the last 10 minutes and by the way, this is our movie.
And not to mention, we're the friggin' Beatles. We're the most famous people on earth right now.
Yeah. So I can't help it. I mean, and it was greatly played. The guy playing Smithers had, perfect. He had that British upper crust.
Oh, yeah, that very entitled, very, things aren't supposed to change. I like things the way they are. No.
Yes.
Oh, these bloody foreigners, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. And I can't help but wonder if they did that. I really wonder how that was perceived at the time. Was there cheering?
Probably. There was a certain amount of, at that point, never trust anyone under 30, fight the authority, save the empire, damn the man.
Well, have we even gotten to the Don't Trust Anyone Under 30 yet? I don't think
No, that
we
was
have.
a little late. It was the beginning of the counterculture in 64. Well, I mean, this was made in 63. It was just starting out. It wouldn't be. I don't think the Never Trust Anyone Until 30 was more of the serious hippie movement in the late 60s.
Yeah. But, of course, these guys are rebelling with their haircuts, but they're still wearing suits.
They're wearing suits and ties. They're all very neatly groomed. Nowadays, of course, we look at like, oh no, their hair comes slightly below their ears. Like, really? This is supposed to be shot? Well, of course, and it was for the time. That whole... Yeah. I do like when they're at the party and people are asking, they're being interviewed and people are asking these ridiculous questions. And one of them asks Ringo, what would you call that hairstyle? He just says, Arthur. I love that.
I did too. I had it in my notes. There's a couple of lines in here which are actually funny. There's one point where we don't know what they're asking Paul McCartney because they only cut to him when he answers the question. He keeps saying, no, actually, we're just good friends. And it's like... Are they talking about the Beatles? And it's like, what? And then later on, it's like, oh, is that your grandfather? No, we're just good friends.
Yeah, he just answers that about everybody.
Yeah. The counterculture, though, is interesting because if you look at the footage of the people in the crowds, most of them are young women, but there are some guys in there, and they're all wearing suits and ties.
Yeah.
Like, I'm rebelling, but I'm going to dress nice. When's the last time you saw somebody wearing a suit that wasn't at a funeral?
No, I see people in suits sometimes.
I don't.
You know, most formal events or...
That's it, though.
Yeah.
It has to be an event. Like, even people at work these days, it's like...
I don't know. I don't hang around a lot of banks, so I don't know. Maybe the executives in the bank still wear them.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's like it used to be, well, you just wore one. Like, you wore a suit. You know, that's what you did. And... I don't know. I just found that part of it kind of unintentionally interesting because, of course, they're just depicting the way people were. And it's like, oh, no, his hair is 2 inches too long. And it's like, he's wearing a thong. Would that bother you or is it just the hair? I don't know. I liked the appearance by Mad Magazine.
That was cute. And it is strange to think that they actually toned down the fan reaction because they do show a bunch of scenes of them being literally chased down the street or in a train station by hordes of screaming teenagers, mostly girls, but not all. And it's disturbing because a few times you see, and I don't know if this is intentional, somebody falls and is just trampled by the rest of them.
Yeah, well, apparently one of those shots... I'm trying to think, was it George who fell? George fell. He actually tore his suit, and all the other Beatles stopped and waited for him to get up, and they, would run with him. But most of the scenes, of course, they were extras. Some of them they weren't.
I mean, that's really disturbing. We talk about now, it's like, oh my God, fans going through the rock stars' garbage or hiding outside their houses or trying to get in their cars. I don't know if we still get the crazed, rampaging mobs charging after them. I don't know if this is just because now they hire meaner security people, which, quite honestly, they would be within their rights to do, because that's scary as hell.
Yeah. Let's put it this way. It's either become so normalized that they don't bother reporting it anymore, or they don't do it anymore because because remember, we talked about this when we saw good old Frida. And that was that people had this fantasy that they were actually going to marry the Beatles.
Yeah.
And when they would, get married off here and there, people would just be like, yeah, I'm done with the Beatles because I can't marry them anymore. And it's just like, wait, what? And I think potentially because of things like social media, where everybody decides that everybody has to know everything we're doing right now. It's like, look what I pooped this morning. Okay, thank you, Instagram.
That's not pooptogram, actually.
Oh,
but yes.
Dang, I keep meaning to get that one.
Yeah.
That it, in a way, it normalizes the person a little bit more, because this film is probably the most anybody has seen of the Beatles to this point. Like, oh, you may have seen them in concert way down there and they're the size of your thumb, or maybe they showed up on Ed Sullivan, but you just see them sing. That's it. You don't see them being the Beatles so much. This is their first film, and it's an hour and 27 minutes of the boys mostly not singing.
Oh, there's a fair amount of singing.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that.
There's a lot. We'll get to. We should talk about all the singing.
But like otherwise, like I don't think you got that much exposure to the people, and now we see them everywhere. And it's like, oh, what's J-Lo wearing today, or whoever? I don't know who's popular.
Billie Eilish. I don't know.
Yeah, she is. So, and I've watched documentaries about her, and the people love her, but I don't see them rushing the stage or going, you know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe you're right.
We still see people jumping up on stage. The thing is, we also see incredibly speedy security people running out and clotheslining them. Or
not always. Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, well.
But yeah. I don't know. It's certain things that just because the times have changed, I found interesting. Speaking of the good old Frida, there's a good joke in there about they're handing out fan mail, and if they have homework, they have to sign all this fan mail, except for poor Ringo.
Well, except they do bring in like a whole pile for him. Although the joke is like, this is from the Circle Club,
yeah,
which is like the Rotary Club or some such.
Well, no, that's the where they go. That's the gambling place.
Oh, that was Le Cirque. Yeah,
right.
That's right.
Well, it's French, so of course they said it's circle because they don't know how to pronounce things in French. But yeah, and that's
they know how. They just refuse.
And Frida and good old Frida said, "Yeah, there were 9, and I felt so bad for poor Richie, and so because initially he wasn't getting any, but whatever."
Yeah, they really do kind of. I assume this is a gag, but they really pick on Ringo quite a bit in this.
Yeah,
they make a lot of fun of his. Everyone seems to make fun of his nose.
Well, it is rather large.
I knew it was big, but I didn't think it was going to be big.
Yeah, and it is big,
noticeable.
Yeah, but I will say whatever else, because this is still pretty early in the Beatles. We're getting to the midpoint, but the camaraderie between them feels real to me. How did you think? You get the feeling these are guys that hang out together a lot. Yeah.
They're very familiar with each other. They're very comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
I don't know if they like each other.
I didn't get anything about John and Paul at all. I didn't see George looking like he felt left out so much. There's plenty of George in there. I think that stuff will come later. I mean, we know this stuff comes later, but I guess they just haven't been through quite as much yet. Because, of course, they're still touring at this point. They're still playing. They will for, another 2 years? 66,
yeah.
Is that when they gave up?
I thought it was 68, but yeah. It is interesting to me. You were talking about, oh, no, they're smoking. They never drink.
Well,
I think maybe a bottle of beer, maybe.
Well, John is trying to snort Pepsi. But
well, yeah. But there's no alcohol. I mean, there is alcohol in the movie. They never touch it.
No. Oh, they're trying. That of course would be that's not clean cut. We can't do that. They don't eat either. They try.
Yeah, people keep taking their food away, or it's no good. That's some sort of a running gag, I guess.
Yeah, they're at this party and somebody's wandering about with canapes, and every time one of the Beatles reaches for them, she turns away, and they don't get any. So I don't know what that means, but whatever.
What did you think of that rather odd sequence with George when he is dragged into the office of that fashion designer or trendsetter? Basically, he runs into the 60s equivalent of an influencer.
Yep.
And wants him to look at these shirts and tell everyone how much he likes them. And has no idea who he is. Or they think the closest we get is maybe they think he's a George Harrison impersonator.
Right. Well, so I did see some of this in the trivia, and apparently the woman in question, I don't remember her name, did have a show. She was real. And
yeah, I thought so.
It was a love or hate thing. Like, she would say what's hip and what's not, and people loved her and hated her, which I guess is the sign of a good influencer, whatever. Apparently, when they hold up these shirts, and they want to know his opinion, he calls them grotty.
Yeah.
Apparently, that was a term that they had heard, or they said they'd heard when they were kids, but wasn't in common usage at the time. And they're credited as making it popular, saying grotty for grotesque. Apparently, the shirts in question bore a very similar look to shirts that had been worn by the Dave Clark Five.
Oh, dear.
And so that may or may not have been a commentary on what they thought of the Dave Clark Five.
There are rumors that they didn't like each other, that those two groups had kind of, I don't know if it was a rivalry or they just didn't get along or what.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was an odd little sequence, but also it sort of showed you, to me, it was kind of cool because it's like the thing we're doing right now, the film you're watching was made by people like this.
It's just strange. It's like he walks into a different movie.
Yeah.
For like 3 minutes or so.
Well, that happens a lot.
I do, and again, the little things like John does when they're measuring him for clothes, and the guy's holding the tape measure, and he picks up a pair of scissors, turns around and says, like the Queen, "I declare this bridge open," and snips the tape measure.
I loved that. I died. It was so, and that was like, to me, I was seeing a John I did not know, but I was really delighted in because he seemed so childlike and fun, and that was a real bit of British humor right there to me, like that.
There is a lot of that in this movie. This is such a damn English movie. Oh my God. Never mind that all of the slang and the colloquialisms, when you're, let's say he's got a big beezer, nose, right, or neb, or any of those things. Or he's got a cuppa, eh?
Yeah.
You really have to pay attention. But there's also, standard sort of British humor stuff. Like in the middle of the movie, for no reason, there is a German operatic number going on, and Paul's grandfather rises through a trap door into the middle of it. And it's just chased. Like, all right. And when the police are chasing them, I kept expecting someone in a gorilla suit to show up in the chase, and then a little bald man to appear, and someone to walk over and slap him repeatedly on the top of the head. It was very Benny Hill.
All done to yakety sax.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another thing. So when the plot actually shows up, such as it is, and there really isn't any, apparently the big deal is you're going to be doing this live broadcast show, which for some reason looks like the British equivalent of the Donnie and Marie Hour, because it's all these different acts that, let's face it, the audience is not going to care about. Because it's going to be this German opera thing.
And the fellow and his 10 disappearing doves. 9, yes.
I laughed out loud at that. Did you?
I did. I thought that was pretty funny. It was a cheap shot, but it worked.
And the thing is it's so telegraphed because they're standing in front of the sign that says 10 disappearing doves. Paul claps the guy on the shoulder.
No, it's the granddad. Granddad does.
The granddad.
Claps him on the shoulder and feathers fall out of his cuff.
Well, no, first he claps him. The guy looks sort of upset. Then the feathers. It's a very slow joke. You know what's coming. The feathers fall to the floor. He slowly takes a pen out of his pocket, turns to the sign, crosses off the 10 and writes a 9. And it's funny.
Yeah, it works.
If that's the stuff that Alan Owen was writing, good for him. Maybe it makes the Beatles out to be, as you said, caricatured or something, but I was surprisingly amused, so it's all right.
It's so odd. Like you said, they have these sort of variety show. There's a set of dancers who are dancing before, and if you listen, they're dancing to this sort of blanded out version of Happy Just to Dance With You, the Beatles song that the Beatles then come out and play the way it's supposed to be played.
Yeah.
But it's the same song. It's the same music. And, of course, as you say, they never use the name of the band, but all over the wall are these huge photographs of beetles, actual insects.
In case you forgot.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the songs in this film, shall we?
Okay.
I mean, they're Beatles songs, so hey, they're great. But
they're very early Beatles songs.
They're mostly the catchy ones and the lovey-dovey ones, which is, I'm in love with you. Insert name here.
Yep, all right. They start off really with the Hard Day's Night, and then it's like when they're playing in cards in the cargo hold of the train. They're playing I Should Have Realized.
Yeah, the best thing is the songs always fit the moment and the mood perfect. Oh wait, no, not at all.
No, they don't. They have nothing to do with what's going on at all. They just it's like those old. Hey, look. Here's a guitar. I'll play a song.
It's Bare Naked Ladies.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then there's later on in the film, it's like, wait, Can't Buy Me Love. Didn't we already hear it? Yes, we did.
Yeah, they do a couple of songs twice. Or there's this odd one where they're just mucking around on the set of the TV show they're going to be on, and they suddenly break into a fully choreographed, orchestrated version of If I Fell in Love with You. But if you look, Ringo is not playing the drums. He's moving the sticks, but he's not hitting them.
Is that the one where he's playing the bongos?
No, that was another one.
Well, that was cool because the one where he's playing the bongos, you can hear that there's also the sound of the sticks, and it's like, who's playing them?
Yeah, that was in, I think, And I Love Her.
Yeah.
One of the things that surprised me is, and I have heard it, and it just never occurred to me that it was him. John Lennon is playing the harmonica. And he does. He really plays the harmonica, and he plays it on a bunch of the songs.
Why did you think it wouldn't be him?
I didn't know he could play the harmonica.
Oh. Well, he can in the movie anyway.
No, he really can. I looked it up.
Could. All I know is that especially towards the end of the film, because like really the last 10 minutes of the film is just the concert.
Yeah, they're just playing one song after song.
To quote Gypsy, pad the film, pad the film, pad the film. Although actually maybe it's Crow.
I think it's all of them. I thought they all three of them sing it.
Yeah, it's just like and some songs. It's like once again.
Well, clearly,
we've almost got the soundtrack. Almost one more song. Oh, we've made it.
Yep, we got to fill out the soundtrack a little bit. There we go.
Yeah, and interestingly, this was a record that was released by United Artists, and it was like one of the only, if not the only Beatles album that was. And when United decided to get out of doing music, they, of course, the people who were doing Parlophone or whoever was doing it in Britain, went ahead and grabbed the record and they re-released it because there was a version of the songs that the Beatles did on a different, there was a soundtrack album, and the soundtrack album also had like the Beatles songs and, you know, background music from the music, because like who cares?
Yeah.
But they also released albums with the songs from this movie in it other ways, but they made a ton on the soundtrack, so they were happy, and a ton on the movie because, yeah, Beatles. But yeah, it's just the whole last bit of the film is just this, and there's also, that's where the only, if you want to call it conflict.
Yeah, that's the only sort of plot issue is, Ringo, in a very strange sequence, Paul's granddad convinces Ringo that he shouldn't be reading books or sitting in a canteen. He should be out living life.
Yeah. And
now, let's break that down a little bit. Here is this old man old man, it's kind of sad now. He's got to be like in his 50s maybe, but here is this guy telling one of the most famous musicians in the history of the world that she's wasting his life and life is passing him by, and he should go out and walk around.
He should parade.
He should parade. That is the term he uses. And Ringo goes for it, and he just walks around London getting into very, very, very minor trouble.
I mean, basically, he's told to live it up, and he gets them all wound up, and Ringo finally says, "You're right," and throws his book down, which I'd actually found out what the book was. Now I forget what it was.
I don't remember.
It didn't matter. And who does he decide to live it up with? These 4 kids. Literally.
Actually, I thought that scene where he's walking along the river with his camera and he just starts talking to this kid was really kind of sweet.
Yeah. It just also went to prove Ringo's just not the rebellious type.
He's really not. I mean, he's tipping his hat to the police officer. And
yeah. Well, and then he gets pulled in.
For nothing, really.
Yeah.
Possibly causing a breach of the peace.
Yeah, and the grandfather gets pulled in, and the grandfather is all like, "Oh, you rotten policeman, you're always
damn
like, when are you going to beat us
all
up?
All coppers are villains." I love that. All coppers are villains. And the sergeant, would you two like some tea?
Yeah.
That's how they get you.
Yeah, the tea. And then, of course, now, oh no, are they going to be in time for their show? They missed their dress rehearsal of yet one more Beatles song. But that's okay, because they're going to play one while they're looking for Ringo, so we won't miss anything. And then, lo and behold, at the last minute, they find Ringo, and they distract the cops and get them out. And
nothing happens, basically.
Yeah. This whole film is the theme is basically nothing happens. But you get to see the Beatles, you know.
You see the Beatles and you see them goofing around and you see the way people react to them.
So one of the things that often happens in films of this type, or just in other types of films, is you get people who are not generally known for their acting.
Yeah.
Often they're musicians. Sometimes they could be politicians, whatever. And suddenly they're thrust into the stage and they're told to act. So, in order, who would you say is the worst of the four Beatles as an actor, and who is the best? I just wonder what your opinion is.
I'm not sure. I don't know about the worst. I think John is probably the best.
That's
honestly.
What I picked.
He's, I think, the most theatrical. He always was. I think Ringo is pretty good. I would say, if I had to say worst, I'd say it's Paul.
Why would you say Paul?
Because Paul has one shtick. He just sort of mugs at the camera, and he doesn't have much of a range of facial expressions, and pretty much all the others do, and he doesn't say as much. He doesn't seem to actually do as much as the others.
I was going to put George on the bottom, but then you reminded me of that scene where he's actually dealing with the grotty shirts and stuff.
Yeah,
so.
And that was, he actually got to be kind of interesting there.
Yeah.
And he was believable. Like, yeah, we watch them and turn the sound down and say rude things.
I think what it comes down to for me is that John seems the most comfortable.
Yeah, I think he was very comfortable with an audience.
Or, potentially, John was the one who cared the least. He's just like, I don't care what you think.
To that. I don't know.
Well, no, I don't mean about the film. I mean about, I don't care what you think. I'm just going to be me. I'm out there. Doesn't matter. And maybe because of that, that's why he is so funny. Because John is funny.
Yeah.
I really did not expect that, but John is funny. I would say, after having watched this, I might have called George the moody one. He seemed to be the sort of least happy of the group.
He was always sort of the quiet, introspective one. Yeah.
He's also the youngest, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I never remember.
I think he's a year younger than everybody, a year or two younger than everybody else. Because I think when he went to Germany, he was only 17.
It is something to see them in these movies. In this movie, they look like children. They look so. I mean, Lennon not as much, but George Harrison looks like a baby.
Well, so does Paul to some extent. There's this one point where Granddad wants him. Oh, no, who is it who wants to show him how to shave?
No, that's right. Shake wants George to show him, or one of them to show him how to shave.
And it's like, what do you know about shaving?
Yeah, have you ever used a razor? Come on.
Yeah, and that's actually a very well set up bit of camera work, because he actually just he just sort of rolls his eyes and he sprays the shaving cream on the mirror, but at exactly where it would be on the face of the manager, and then proceeds. And this is shaving, and he's like oop oop oop, and like there's little bits where he's like catching it. And I hate shaving scenes because I'm always worried someone's going to cut themselves.
Yeah. Yep.
What else you got?
I do like some of the interaction between Shake and Norm. Because some of it is so out of left field. Shake's playing around, he's putting on one of the wigs, and Norm snaps at him, "Shake, take that wig off, it suits you." Like, what?
No idea. And it's one of those big French piled high, foppish wigs, you know. Mayhap foppish though I be, I might be the Scarlet Pumpernickel.
I just like the way, John will just turn to someone and go, "Cheeky."
Well, yeah, now it's a little bit of the gay thing sneaking in there, but that's
okay.
Yeah. Well, because that's Brian Epstein was.
I just thought it was he was just like he was interpreting innocent sounding phrases as something naughty.
Oh, but the way he said cheeky, I think it's supposed to be a little gay thing, but whatever. There's a slight hint. There's a couple of scenes where you can get the working classness of the boys' background. They've been polished up a lot, but there's especially when they're smoking, where you can they did not grow up in a big, nice picket fence house. They actually were. Yeah.
No, these were working class lads.
Yeah. Other than that, I'm out of notes.
I do like the way they end it. Because Lennon one of his first lines to Norm is, "You're a swine, Norm," and at the end it's like, "Lennon, I just got one thing to say to you. You're a swine." Kind of like the bracket. But yeah, that's about it.
The roundup. So Max.
Yeah.
When was the first time? I know you couldn't have seen this when it came out because
no, but I saw it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I am really embarrassed to say this, but when I was a kid, I remember thinking this was an actual documentary. Oh yeah, because I let me explain. I was very stupid. I'm looking at it now and I'm going, what was wrong? Well, the only thing I can say in my defense is that may be the first thing I ever saw that looked like a documentary.
Well, it's in black and white too, and when you were a kid, by that point, everything was in color. So, oh, this is serious.
Yeah. I think as a kid, I thought it was boring because nothing happens for the most part.
It's true.
And I mean, I liked the songs, except those aren't my favorite Beatles songs. I like the later ones, honestly.
Right.
I like the things you get from Rubber Soul and Abbey Road and Sgt. Pepper.
Yeah.
These aren't bad, but it's kind of what the Ruttles highlighted. If you actually just listen to the lyrics, they're kind of inane for the most part. What makes them work is the musicianship and the harmonies and the incredible voice work, which as a kid I didn't appreciate quite as much.
So you saw it when you were a kid. Can you recall before doing this show when the last time you saw this film was?
Yeah, I saw it in high school at the Harvard Square Theater with I think it was a double feature. It
Probably
may have been
Help.
it was either with Help or there was this or Let It Be. I can't remember.
Magical Mystery Tour?
No, I never, because Magical Mystery Tour I saw on videotape.
Okay.
I think. I don't remember much of it. I remember it being pretty dull.
And what did you remember about it from seeing it in high school?
Again, that was when I was like, wait a minute, I don't think this is a real documentary.
Max cresting over that stupidity he talked about.
No, just a slight decrease in stupidity, which persists to this day.
Hang 10, Max.
I thought Help was more fun.
Yeah.
When I was when I was younger, but and you've never seen this.
Well, we're not done yet because now
Yeah.
we've done Help and Hard Day's Night. So
Yeah.
you just watched it for this show. What do you think about it now?
I actually think it's a much better movie than Help.
Yeah.
In terms of just cinematically, it's much better done. As you say, the camera work is really good. They're more fun to watch. In Help, as we talked about, they mostly seem like they don't want to be there.
Well, in some cases they
and most of them are stoned. They're stoned through most of it.
Wheatley deedly.
Yes, because by that point they had been introduced to tea.
Yes, tea.
Which, by the way, was a slang for marijuana.
It was? Oh,
In
right,
the
because
60s.
marijuana starts with tea.
Well, no, because it looked like ground up leaves.
Oh.
Yeah,
I think it's called Mary Jane.
No, it had a lot of names. I think tea lasted about 8 months, and that was it. But I gotta say, though, still, this is very 60s, and parts of this movie are incredibly slow.
Yes.
And as I say, this is not my favorite musical phase of the Beatles. But when they're just goofing around, it's a lot of fun. And some of it is very funny. Overall, I don't know how well it hangs together. It's fascinating to see because, again, they look so young, and they're just reaching the peak of their. They're not at the peak, but they're reaching it. It's really interesting to see. What about you? This is the first time you'd seen this?
This is the first time I'd seen it.
What'd you think?
I was surprised. Like you, I had seen Help when I was a kid and remember that being goofy and hilarious and high-spirited and fun, and found it to be very dull and pointless. And I laughed a few times in this film. Mostly it was for John, but sometimes it was for the grandfather, or sometimes for some of the other, guys making jokes.
Yeah.
And some of that, I like British humor. What can I say? I've liked it since I was a kid. I watched Monty Python almost as it came out because our local PBS station was running it in the early 70s, bare breasts and all.
Yep. Me too.
And so I grew up with that, and that flavor, whatever, I don't even know how to codify it, but that flavor of British humor is very much in this film. It's pointless. In the end, they didn't even expect it to be merch. They were like, we just want to do this film so we can sell a record. And it's like, $8 million? Oh, yes, we'll do that.
Maybe we should have promoted it.
Well, it didn't have to, apparently.
Yeah,
And I honestly think that it really is because other than magazine photos or the albums or an occasional appearance on a TV show, which was just them playing.
They were doing a few interviews, but
Yeah, you just didn't get much of the Beatles at one time being the Beatles, even if it was fake.
Yeah, being what you expect the Beatles to be.
Or a documentary.
That's right. Are you a rod or a mucker? I'm a mucker.
Well, that's a real thing, too.
Yeah.
Speaking of musicianship, real quick, I want to throw this in. I did not know this, but I found out while doing research for this particular show. I wonder if this doesn't fall into why a lot of people didn't think much of Ringo as a drummer. Ringo's left-handed. And when he was a kid, his parents shoved him to be right-handed, as a lot of parents did.
Yeah, also schools would do that. They would encourage you to be right-handed.
And apparently there's footage in this film. Well, Ringo decided to go back to being left-handed because he was left-handed. And there's occasionally times where he had to switch hands for the drumsticks to play certain ways instead of, if he'd left him in his left hand, he'd have been fine, but he couldn't. So you can see, apparently, I didn't notice this, that there's times where he switches hands for the what things he's playing with. And I just found that really interesting. I didn't know he was left-handed, and I didn't know it was something he'd been struggling with. But
so he's touched by the devil. Okay.
Yeah. Part of this film was nostalgic for me, even though I hadn't seen it before, because there was one or two albums that most of these songs were on that my parents played a lot when I was a kid. And they tended to play them when they had people over for like dinner. And if it was early enough, my sister and I would dance like crazy to this stuff. So Can't Buy Me Love, one of the biggest songs. We would just, and of course, at this point we're like 7 and 8 or 9 or whatever. And we're just dancing, thrashing around like crazy to the Beatles songs because we thought it was a lot of fun. So part of that part was nostalgic. I would say if you're not a Beatles fan, why bother? But that being said, it's plotless.
It's not supposed to. It's supposed to be like a day in the life.
I guess. And it's obviously fake, which is, it's obvious to most of us that it's fake.
Oh, yeah, rub that in my face, why don't you?
I would have thought the same thing. But the bits where I think we actually get to see some of the real people before it's impossible to see the real people are fun. John's hilarious. The scene of him in the bathtub, oh my God, people must have been going absolutely nuts. John's naked in the bathtub!
Yes, very odd. Yes, be playing U-boat captain and British bomber. And then apparently we discovered John Lennon can teleport.
Well, that's
He disappears from the suds and comes walking into the room when Norma's looking for him.
Well, also, apparently, and this was a little bit of Beatles prescience, at one point he does say help while he's in the bathroom, and he's playing with a submarine at the same time.
Which is not yellow as far as we can tell.
Well, it's gray because
black and white.
Gray.
Yeah.
It was a surprise. I had after seeing Help and being really honestly bored by Help, and knowing that this was just a bit of fluff, I expected it to be enjoyless. Is that a word? No.
No, it is not.
It is now. And parts of it were fun. The music was padding, but the parts that were funny, I enjoyed. Them running around being chased, meh. But I'd say if you're a Beatles fan or if you've just discovered the Beatles music and you're wondering more about them, it's not going to teach you anything factual about them at all.
But it is going to give you a real idea of their image, of how people saw them.
Yeah, and there's little bits in there. Like, I was fascinated by the depiction of class differences in Britain at the time and the emerging, focus on youth culture and stuff, which is still where we are. And I'm not at all grumpy about it being a middle-aged white guy.
Music and hair and clothes.
Yeah, hair and clothes. Boo. So it's one of those things where I was surprised how much could be pulled out of it. So, yeah, sure. You know what? Watch.
Yep.
But, hey, speaking of watching stuff, we have that poll question to go back.
Yes, we do. Remind us, won't you?
Watching stuff. Yes, I would like to know, what is your favorite movie quote? And actually, we would like to know. Sorry, Max. What is your favorite movie quote? What line from some movie pops into your head most often, and why do you like it so much? And how can you tell us about that? Well, there's myriad ways, although they're
the myriad ways.
All the myriad ways. First up, email us directly. Us at maxmikemovies.com is a great way to get in touch with us, and you can do that for answers to the poll question, for suggestions for new shows, for suggestions for whatever. Actually, right now we have it on our Facebook page, which I'll get to in a second, where we're asking who's an actor you'd like us to do a little deep dive into, a little 4-episode series into. We've got some answers so far, but hey, feel free to email us some more. You can go to our website where you can leave comments on any given episode to either say, you guys stink, I don't like what you think about my favorite movie, me. And be
Please don't write that or Mike will cry.
And make sure to spell properly, because
that's very important.
And that's maxmikemovies.com. You could also find us on social media, as I was just talking about, such as Facebook and, for the moment, Twitter. But I think those days are numbered. Or if you're listening to podcasts on other podcast apps, you'll probably find us on that same app, and that might include the Google Podcast Babadappas app or the Flabadabadoo.
Yes, the Flabadabadap. That's actually
That's
a pretty.
my favorite
That's
one.
not as popular, but I like the interface.
The Google Podcast app or the Apple Podcast app or perhaps iHeartRadio or Amazon Music apparently we're on.
Yep, we're
And
on
there's
Amazon Music.
A couple of those, we're not going to mention them because these days it's getting harder and harder to find these things that aren't owned by big poop heads. But we're going to finish up this series, ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles, with next week's entry. And Max, what Beatles-centric, entirely encompassing all that is Beatles movie are we going to finish up on?
You see, we've also talked about the influence the Beatles have, the creativity that they've inspired. So really, this is more of the culmination of what the Beatles gave the world. And what is a greater symbol of that than the Monkees?
Huh?
We're going to watch the Monkees' sadly only movie, I don't know why, Head.
Well, maybe we'll find out why.
Well, we were hoping, I know they were hoping for the sequels Neck and Shoulders, but I don't think those were made, or if they were never released widely. But yes, we're going to watch the Monkees movie, Head.
So, Head, won't you?
Head.
This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.